The battle over mail-in ballots is heating up this morning with new concerns about how and when those ballots will be counted. That's because, according to laws in at least 14 states, which include some battleground states, officials can't even start authenticating early mail-in ballots until Election Day, much less begin tabulating them. At the same time, voting rights groups are calling recent cuts to the U.S. Postal Service a threat to this year's election. I asked Keith Richardson, president of the local Postal Workers Union in Chicago, what he and his colleagues think of the Postmaster General's refusal to restore those high-volume mail sorting machines, which have been removed from hundreds of facilities across the country.
They take machines out all the time, but as a union, we question why now? Why during the pandemic when you take machines out when people are not receiving mail from days and weeks at a time? You know, an election is coming up. Ballots are going to be mailed out. You know, we have to service our troops overseas. We question the motive of the PMG and the president. Why would you send out a directive to remove additional machines during the pandemic?
And look, it's not just the mail sorting machines. Drop boxes have become another flashpoint. Drop boxes are what they sound like. They allow voters to drop off their ballots in designated and secure locations without having to wait in lines to vote or wait on the postal system to return their mail-in ballot. And in the key battleground state of Ohio, voting rights groups and the state's Democratic Party are now suing the Republican Secretary of State there. They're trying to dismiss his directive that each county have just one drop box for absentee ballots. Instead, they want multiple drop boxes in each county. And joining us right now is Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose. Mr. LaRose, it's great to see you. So first, what is your reaction to this lawsuit against you?
Well, it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of life that here in battleground Ohio, we end up with lawsuits in the weeks leading up to a presidential election. And this is one that we'll pursue just like we do all of them. I mean, to be clear, though, Ohioans know that the best way to return your absentee ballot is to mail it in. And what I'm trying to do is get permission from the legislature to make that a postage paid envelope. And even with just a few weeks to go, if they give me that permission, that would be something we would love to do. And that effectively makes every mailbox in the state a drop box.
But what about the drop boxes, though? I mean, Arizona, another battleground state, they allocate drop boxes based on the size of a county. So Maricopa County, for instance, they just added more drop boxes, and they strategically placed them along bus routes. So why can't Ohio do the same thing, for instance?
Well, because the law doesn't allow it. I would love to see a program like that, and I would be actively supportive of such a piece of legislation in our state legislature. But the law in Ohio says, actually very clearly at the end of the statute as it pertains to dropping off absentee ballots, it says ballots may be returned by no other means. It's very clear that the state legislature intends to limit that ability, and I would like to see them change that. But certainly as the executive office holder that's in charge of voting in the state of Ohio, I can't make up statute. I have to enforce the law as it exists.
The lawsuit against you says the need for several secured drop boxes in counties has been heightened in recent weeks because of the well-documented cutbacks with the mail service. And one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit says she's, quote, concerned that the Postal Service delays will prevent her from timely receiving and returning multiple election mailings, including an absentee application and an absentee ballot. So what's your response to that? Because even if you have postage-paid ballots, if there are delays with the delivery, people who follow the rules, who follow the deadlines, could still be disenfranchised.
Sure. And that's obviously a concern that any of us would have. Making sure that every voice is heard in an election is my sacred mission in this office. And that's why this week we're sending out an absentee ballot request form to every registered voter in the state, 7.8 million registered voters in the state. This is 16 tractor trailer loads full of mail. I was out at the print shop the other day just doing this. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to encourage everybody in Ohio to cast their absentee ballot, but it has to start by making your request, and we want them to do that early. The good news here, Jeff, also in Ohio, is that we can receive our absentee ballots up to 10 days after the election.
A question for you, because President Trump has sort of positioned mail-in voting as being some sort of existential threat to Republicans. He said in some interview in a conservative outlet, if you have absentee balloting, you'll never have a Republican elected again in this country. You're a Republican Secretary of State in a swing state. Is there anything to suggest that increased mail-in voting poses some sort of threat to Republicans?
Well, I am a Republican, but first and foremost, I wear the referee's jersey as the chief elections officer for the state of Ohio, so the decisions I make it doesn't come into my calculation whether it helps one party or not. But I'll tell you that here in Ohio, absentee voting for close to 20 years has been trusted by both Republicans and Democrats. And actually, we've seen Republicans in slightly higher numbers than Democrats taking advantage of it over those years. The fact is that Ohioans trust it because it's safe and secure, and everybody in Ohio should go ahead and request their absentee ballot by visiting voteohio.gov and getting the process started or returning the form that we're going to mail you this week.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.